You ever have a morning where the universe just dares you to snap? That's how mine started, with the HOA queen herself parking her sparkling white SUV sideways across my driveway, blocking me in like. It was her God-given right. She steps out in her tennis whites, doesn't even bother to look my way, and leaves a note on the windshield, "Don't go anywhere." Like I'm the help. Yeah, that happened. Only problem? She picked the wrong driveway to stake her flag. See, I'm Holt Travis, and this is my family's dirt. Has been since my great-granddad wrestled it from prairie grass with nothing but a mule and a dream. Nowadays it's a handful of cows, some honest sweat, a barn full of memories, and me. Quiet most days, but not if you start something. I'm old school, maybe, but my code is simple. Mind your business, respect folks, don't ever come looking for trouble unless you want to see how I answer. My wife, Lisa, saw that note first, her eyes sharp as broken glass, always a step ahead. She called me out to the porch, coffee in one hand, worry etched deep in her voice. "You gotta see this hole." The morning was soft, a hint of rain in the air, birds kicking up the usual racket. But that SUV, man, it was like a billboard for arrogance, all gleaming paint and no business on a farm road. I read her note. Community access, she'd written, as if my driveway, worn in by 4 generations, was just some sidewalk for her latest shortcut scheme. They wanted an easement to carve a road right through my best pasture, save her subdivision 5 minutes, wreck my harvest 4. Good. I balled the note up. My tractor sat in the barn, big, green, and loud as a thunderclap. If she wanted a statement, I had one. Lisa didn't say don't. She just nodded at the birdhouse on the fence. Cameras on. That's my girl, always thinking 2 moves ahead. I called the sheriff, but the dispatcher shrugged it off as HOA business. Of course, neighbors started gathering like it was county fair drama. Ed sipped his coffee. Mark ambled up with a grin, asked if I was going to tow or plow. I said, "I'm just taking out the trash." Lisa just smirked, her phone aimed steady at the scene. That John Deere cranked up like a promise. I rolled up slow, forks lowered. My neighbors lined the fence, half rooting, half in awe. You ever seen a luxury SUV look scared? That's what it was, front end dangling 3 feet off the gravel, tires spinning useless as I drifted it over to the muddy ditch. Nice and easy, no scratches, just a soft whomp as it settled nose down. Rear end sticking up like a kid's toy in the sandbox. Felt good. Felt just. Back at the porch, Lisa laughed, phone in hand. Ed drove by twice, nearly throwing out his back from laughing so hard. The camera caught it all, crystal clear. I figured that was the end of it, right? Wrong. The video hit the web before Karen's tow truck even made it. Farmer 1, HOA 0. I should have known the real game. Was just getting started. 2 days later, a fat letter landed in my mailbox, smelling like a perfume counter exploded. Lisa sliced it open, her hands calm, but I saw the jaw tighten. Here we go. 3 fines, each more ridiculous than the last. $500 for driving farm equipment on my own driveway. $1,000 for landscape modification. Guess tire tracks are a crime now. $2,000 for public nuisance, thanks to that viral video. It was so backwards I almost laughed. Lisa went straight to the HOA bylaws, already connecting the dots. She's twisting this to look like you're the threat. Whole. It's all about the easement. Then came the sabotage. Woke up to dead silence. My diesel tank, bone dry, padlock cut. Thousands gone in a night. Next morning, my cattle scattered, fence sliced. Clean, gate swinging. That wasn't a prank. That was someone sending a message. We can reach you. We can break you. But here's the thing about farm folk. We don't quit. We get even. And we do it smart. Lisa cataloged every detail, every photo, every email, turning our kitchen table into a war room. She wants a pattern, Lisa said. Loose cows, stolen fuel, it feeds her story. For the county. I looked out at our land, the quiet before dawn, and knew this was bigger than a driveway. She wanted to bury us in fines and fear until we caved. Time to stop reacting. Time to set the trap. I hit town and came back with more than feed. Trail cameras, GPS trackers, a bottle of UV dye, and some fake birdhouses, each one a hidden eye streaming live to Lisa's phone. My tractor, my trailer, even my diesel drum, each one now a piece on the board. The next few nights were tense, nothing moving but deer and shadows. Then, just past midnight, the barn camera pinged. There he was, dark hoodie, bolt cutters, siphoning diesel into cans. I watched him soak his hands in my special fuel, then hit him with the mag light, and, just for show, the UV. His hands lit up blue as a July sky. He tried to run, but panic does funny things, slipped, fell, and I pinned him up against the barn. Name stitched on his jacket, Jerry. I didn't have to squeeze him hard. One look at those glowing hands, and he spilled it all. Karen had hired him, paid him to steal fuel, cut my fence, mess up my farm to make me look like a hazard. She even paid herself. Through a shell company using her maiden name, thought she was slick. Lisa got it all on record. A confession, signed, and a binder growing thicker by the hour. But we needed more, proof of her link. To the developer, Oak Ridge Estates. Lisa dug up fake HOA minutes, phony meeting records, and golden ticket, a business registration for Karen Miller, Karen's maiden name. We had her nailed. And then, just as we caught our breath, the storm hit. A real Midwestern monster, power out, rain lashing sideways, phone lines dead. In the chaos, two goons showed up to drag Jerry's truck out of my barn, destroy evidence, clean up Karen's mess. I met them with Old Green, the John Deere roaring through the storm, herding their pickup straight into my pond. I fished out their burner phones as they floundered, Sheriff Miller finally arriving after dawn to haul them off. Friday night, we took it public, live-streamed the HOA meeting, laid out the blue-handed sabotage, the phony minutes. The money trail. One by one, neighbors stood up, folks Karen had bullied for years, adding their stories to the fire. And then Sheriff Miller walked in, warrant in hand. Karen Tyson, you're under arrest. The room erupted. She tried to run, dove for her SUV, peeled out, and, poetic as it gets, slid that pristine ride right back into the same ditch I'd parked her in weeks before. Justice, farm style. In the weeks that followed, her whole empire collapsed. Neighbors took the HOA back. Every bogus fine tossed, every backroom deal exposed. My driveway stayed my driveway. My pasture, just a pasture. Jerry copped a plea, the pond divers talked, and Karen's own emails sealed her fate. And me? I hung the old HOA plate, bent and muddy, right on the barn beam. A reminder, don't start a fight you can't finish. Around here, you block a driveway, you meet a ditch. And if you come for what's ours, well, you meet us. Simple as that. Now, I want to hear from you. Where's the line between standing your ground and going too far? Ever had to fight for what was rightfully yours? Drop a comment, share your story, and let's see where folks stand on justice, community, and a little righteous payback. Hit that like button if you enjoyed the ride. Subscribe for more, and don't let anybody tell you your home ain't yours to defend that you'd think after a showdown like that. After the queen bee of the HOA got dragged off in cuffs with her shiny SUV still dripping pond water and mud, things would settle back to normal out here. For a while, they almost did. Neighbors dropping by with casseroles, folks honking when they passed the house, little old ladies from 3 streets over coming up to shake Lisa's hand and whisper about how they always knew something was off with that woman. It was like the whole community could finally exhale. Even the wind seemed a little softer coming through the fields that week. But if I've learned anything in my years out here, it's that storms always leave a mess behind. The rains pass, the clouds break, but you're left with branches to clear and mud to shovel, and sometimes the scars don't show up until weeks later. Lisa got a letter from Karen's lawyer about 3 days after the meeting. Certified, of course, one of those that lands in your mailbox with a thud you can feel in your chest. Pending litigation, full of bluster about defamation and illegal surveillance. Threats of civil suits that would tie us up in court for years. You know what I mean? The kind of letter that tries to put fear right back where justice just swept it out. We weren't alone, either. The woman with the petunias, the family with the swing set, even Ed, who'd stepped in as interim HOA president. All of us got letters, all meant to remind us that even when you cut the head off a snake, the tail keeps twitching. There were rumors Karen still had allies. In county offices, folks who owed her favors, maybe a judge or two who'd show sympathy for a misunderstood community leader. Lisa read the letter, set it aside, and got back to baking bread. Let him try, she said, calm as sunrise. We've got more proof than a preacher at Sunday service. But honestly, it rattled me a little. I started checking the locks twice at night, listening for strange cars on the gravel. We doubled down on security, new game cams, better lights, everything backed up to the cloud this time. Lisa cataloged every document, every digital file, every signed confession in a folder labeled insurance. We weren't just guarding a farm, we were guarding the truth. It was about then that something strange started happening. The very folks who'd spent years minding their own business, keeping their heads down, started showing up at our place, one by one at first, then in twos and threes. Old Harold from the far end of the road came by to talk drainage ditches, but ended up staying for pie and coffee. Sharon, Ed's wife, brought her famous chicken salad and asked if we'd help organize a proper town picnic. Now that things are changing. There was laughter on the porch again, not just tension and worry. I realized then that community doesn't just happen. Sometimes you have to fight for it. Sometimes you build it out of shared wounds. Now, not everyone was on our side. There were a few, always are, who whispered about stirring up trouble, folks who'd rather sweep a mess under the rug than risk their names getting dragged into it. The new board meetings got rowdy, voices raised over budgets and bylaws, a couple old feuds from way back before the HOA days bubbling to the surface now that the big bad wolf was gone. Funny thing about fighting a bully, it doesn't always make you friends, but it does show you who your friends really are. And then, of course, came the fallout. The news picked up the story, farm. Family topples, HOA tyrant. Local paper ran my photo looking dazed, clutching a coffee mug on my front porch, the same porch where Lisa had first spotted that SUV. For a week, strangers would drive by, slow, craning their necks to see the famous driveway. There was talk of interviews, podcasts, someone even suggested a GoFundMe for our legal costs. Lisa and I laughed about it late at night. Can't buy peace and quiet, she said. But maybe we can at least pay off the new locks. But deep down, I knew it wasn't over. Not really. Karen's buddies started hinting at forming a new HOA, promising it would be different this time, that they'd learned from past mistakes. They floated new rules, stricter about fences, new landscaping codes, for the good of the community. You could feel the fear rising, that old-age folks get when power tries to sneak back in the door it just got thrown out of. One afternoon, Ed and I sat on the back of my pickup, watching a couple of deer pick their way along the tree line, and he just shook his head. Funny thing, Hole, he said. We won the war, but the peace might be even harder. He wasn't wrong. Without a common enemy, old differences started to matter again. Property lines, dogs barking, whose kid trampled whose garden. That's the thing about neighborhoods. Victory brings its own kind of trouble. Lisa, ever the practical one, organized a cookout on the open field behind the clubhouse. We dragged out tables, fired up the grill, and told everyone to bring a dish and an open mind. There were awkward moments, sure. A couple of cold stares, some folks sticking to their own. But somewhere between Ed's barbecue and Sharon's potato salad, laughter started to bubble up. Kids played tag until dusk, someone brought out a guitar, and by the time the stars came out, you could almost believe things would be all right. But I'll be honest with you. Sometimes late at night, I stand out on that porch, the one where it all started, and I wonder how much really changed. Did we just knock down one queen so another could rise? Did we stop the bully, or just give the next one better notes? There's a fine line between standing up for what's yours and letting suspicion make you see enemies in every neighbor. Yeah, we won, but at what cost? You ever get that feeling? The world sets you up to fight, but never really tells you how to live together after? The old bent Ms. HOA plate still hangs in my barn, catching the morning light. Some days, it looks like a trophy. Other days, a warning. But every day, it reminds me, you mind your business, help your neighbor, and don't back down when someone tries to take what you've earned. Around here, justice is slow, stubborn, and sometimes ugly, but it's ours. So let me ask you, how far would you go to defend your home, your peace, your sense of what's right? Do you trust your neighbors to have your back, or are you still waiting for the next storm? Share your thoughts down below, and tell me, was it worth it? Would you fight, or would you walk away? Because out here, we're still figuring that out, one muddy, honest step at a time.